Probe 7 Over and Out is an isolating tale about a space traveler trapped on a foreign planet. It's a setup that had been done plenty of times before on this show, but could Rod's writing and the guidance of returning director Ted Post inject new life into the concept? An astronaut named Colonel Cook has crash-landed on a strange planet an impossible distance from his homeworld. His ship looks to be beyond repair. His right arm is broken, along with a rib, and communication with his place of origin is barely functioning. Cook's countrymen back home say there's no chance of a rescue, and their world is on the brink of war. The colonel traverses the terrain outside and is made aware of another being's presence. With little hope left, he decides to investigate this visitor in anticipation of finding a friend who can help him survive in his new surroundings. Quick programming note. Probe 7 Over and Out was originally supposed to follow the installment Nightcall, but Nightcall was rescheduled at the last minute and eventually aired over 2 months later. The reason it was rescheduled? We'll go over all that when we get to the episode. The bottom line is, Probe 7 Over and Out made its debut 2 weeks after Uncle Simon. Some of the streaming services list Nightcall in this slot, but we're going by the historical airing order as presented in the complete series Blu-ray set. Now, Ted Post made a comeback to the series 3 years after his Season 1 episode, A World of Difference. I've said before, it's one of my favorite early installments of the show, and it made it into my top 5 of Season 1, which I expound upon in a video on my personal channel. Post had a lot of goodwill with me heading into this installment, but I don't think Probe 7 stacks up in any aspect of production to his previous work on the series. There are many different factors why this might be. Buck Houghton was gone, Rod wasn't as involved, and the quality level of Richard Matheson's great script for A World of Difference wasn't present. Not to say Probe 7 doesn't have a few positive aspects. The large crashed spaceship set did much to establish the mood and made for some fantastic wide shots. It really looks great on screen. While this story all takes place in a very small area, the scope of everything just feels bigger, so points for that. There aren't many other strong positives to point out. The acting ranges from passable to overly theatrical. Richard Basehart was a well-known actor in those days, but his delivery of Serling's excessively wordy and ostentatious lines simply comes across as too much.
What you think of as a haven, General, is a very large, dark dungeon. Maybe this world has only night and no day, so far only darkness. And I don't care very much for solitary confinement.
Welcome! Welcome! Come on down and meet your genial host. Let me see you.
Your planet got out of its orbit and moved away from your sun. And that's where you went. That's where your world went.
Cook learned all that from a little dirt drawing? Impressive. I know he had to do most of the dramatic lifting himself since he's on screen alone for a majority of the time, but how Basehart was speaking sounded like he was playing to the back row of a sold-out Broadway show.
Come on, friend. Come on out.
Sorry, that part always gets me. Hilarious timing there. Anyway, I think Serling's script is heavily lacking in both originality and the enthusiasm his earlier work had. Rod himself admitted his perspective was shot by this point in the game, and I could definitely feel that here. Probe 7 Over and Out has shades of episodes like Season 3's 2 with a male and female of different nations learning to communicate. I also felt some King 9 Will Not Return vibes, with the isolated pilot in a natural environment talking to himself. The ending twist here is where it'll either lose you completely or maybe get you back on board a bit. After Cook is knocked unconscious, a final message comes through the ship's communication system. War has fully broken out. The Colonel's homeworld is minutes away from self-destruction. His colleague bids a somber farewell. When Cook wakes up, he discovers the message and tracks down the being who's been hiding around his ship recently. A human woman. Norda is from a separate planet, a planet that's orbit shifted away from its sun and resulted in her also crash landing on this current world. Trying to decipher each other's languages, Cook and Norda reveal each other's first names, Adam and Eve. Together, the pair name their new home Earth and travel into nature in search of a garden-like area with more vegetation. Eve offers Adam fresh fruit from a tree, as Rod's narration points out these two familiar figures may be part fable and part fantasy, but they existed in this form in the Twilight Zone. So yeah, they're Adam and Eve. This is what the book of Genesis was based on, folks. In my opinion, it's kind of goofy and not that unexpected of a twist with all the hints they were dropping. The turn wasn't exactly unheard of at the time either, but if you didn't see it coming, or you were younger when you first watched it, maybe this worked for you. As entertaining as a few moments in this episode are, I can't give it a recommendation. Besides the story problems, there are some production issues like obvious ADR and how they inexplicably play Jerry Goldsmith's score from back there. It feels like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. A lot of episodes do this with the great soundtracks, and it rarely works. The music from The Big Tall Wish, another Jerry Goldsmith classic, also shows up way too much in inappropriate episodes. Ted Post would return for 2 more installments, and I remember one being pretty good, so here's hoping I think the same on the rewatch. What else is there to say? Oh, Norda speaks backwards English, and this shirt is from Forbidden Planet. What did you think of Rod's Adam and Eve story? Let me know, and I'll see you the next time we enter the Twilight.